right, we all set? All right, we'd like to welcome Max Homa to the interview room here. Max, a 2021 Genesis Invitational winner. Max, at that time, you won your second career tour victory. You're back now as a six-time PGA Tour winner. What's changed the most since 2021 to now?
Gotten the ball in the hole a lot faster than I had been. This tournament was very important, I think, for my career arc. The first one you win, as hard as it is to win golf tournaments, you can kind of catch a hot week and win one. I felt like this week, when I won in 21, validated that and then gave me a bunch of confidence going forward. Also, it's on it was a great field on a very demanding golf course, so I just think that I took a lot from that and ran with it a bit. So this one of all of them felt like the biggest kind of catalyst and boost towards what has transpired, I guess, in the last year and a half or 2 years. So that this one definitely propelled me, I guess, more than my first one. My first one gave me comfort, and this one gave me confidence, I guess.
There's no secret about your success in your home state of California. As we finish up the West Coast swing here on the PGA Tour, what's been the most significant, or what stood out to you most about this year's West Coast swing for you?
The weather's been wild. It's been freezing. It's been interesting. We obviously have a different we have these designated events now, last week being the first full field, this one following it. So it's made a couple of these events feel, I love this event. This is my favorite golf event, but I feel like it's gotten more buzz in a way. I guess part of that is because Mr. Woods is playing, which helps. But I don't know. I just feel like the West Coast, the flow feels like it's worked nicely. Kapalua felt like it had a boost. I think next year, as the start of the season, it will feel even more grand. And then, the American Express Championship got a great field, and I think that that kind of started a nice flow towards this. And now we have, last week, obviously, having such a great event with Scotty winning again, battling Nick and John and Xander and all the top players. That was, I thought that was great. And then you kind of finish here at, I would say, a lot of people's at least top 5 favorite golf course, with the host of a tournament being Tiger, which always brings a lot of attention and excitement. But I just feel like it's the arc of it is cool. I think it's kind of climaxing like a movie if you just put it in the West Coast chapter. So I think it's been quite exciting.
Great. With that, we will open for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you. We're going to start first with Dan over here on the left and then come to Jeff.
You've been such a world-class player on the West Coast. How do you go about maintaining that consistency throughout the summer?
Yeah, I think I did that pretty well last year. It was nice to win in a different state last year. When we were in Potomac for the Wells Fargo. Years prior, I had always had a pretty large dip during the summer. Last year, I felt like it was very solid. Obviously, it could always be better, but I finally played well in a major. Kind of kept that going. I only missed one cut, I think, after San Diego last year was at the Open. So I felt like I did a good job of staying consistent. I guess I understand why I play so well on the West Coast in a way, but then when I would look at, my troubles during the summer events, it was weird because I like a lot of those golf courses as well, and I would think that I'd keep playing a similar level of golf. So I thought last year was big for me to kind of continue it a little bit more, and obviously have my best FedEx Cup finish, making it to the Tour Championship, finishing 5th there. So it was nice to see some success outside of this beginning, couple of months of the season or of the year. So how do you do that is, I guess, just an attention to it. I noticed that statistically, my putting in the summer, I would have my lowest make percentage from like 6 feet and in, and I kind of could almost see that it's just like a lack of focus and kind of getting tired. It sounds silly. I mean, we're playing golf, but it's such a frustrating game. The weeks get long, and I think at times when you get frustrated, you start moving too fast. So had a goal last year to make sure that I felt like I was slowing down. I was enjoying myself, maybe even change the schedule a little bit to make sure that I felt fresher. So I'm hoping to do that again this year. But I just think a lot of it is just a continuation of improvement, and you keep getting your game closer and closer to being an all-around good player, and you go to any golf course in any state, and you should at least, I feel comfortable on all of them, which is nice, and I think that's what showed a bit more last year.
And then you have a unique perspective because, unlike Rory or Spieth, these guys who just like shot up to stardom, you've been in both categories. You've been the guy who's clawing for starts, and you've been the guy who's in marquee pairings. How do you view this sort of rumored or maybe even ongoing kind of bifurcation of the tours, where you've got the elevated events for the big guys and then you've got everyone else kind of trying to get in?
I try my absolute hardest to use my perspective, as you mentioned, of seeing both sides of this throughout my career, to make sure I'm forming opinions. And I guess I don't make the decisions, but where my decisions would lie would be for everybody. I try not to make it just about like where I am at this exact moment. And I don't know, it has always been bifurcated in a way. I didn't play in this event without a sponsor's exemption my first couple of years. I didn't play in the Invitationals. I played in, I think, one. I got into Colonial one year because I'd played okay enough to get in. But, yeah, I hadn't played, like, the Players' Championship. I hadn't played a lot of these events. So it has been bifurcated. Now there's potentially going to be, like, a firm line on that. But I think the good news is the non-designated events will still have the same purses going forward. So they'll be the same golf tournament. Potentially the buzz, I guess you could argue, would be lower, but it would be a very similar golf tournament to what it is now, with maybe a few of the top guys not being there. But I don't know. If I was looking at it from trying to put myself in my shoes in 2019, I think I would look at it as a great opportunity to excel in these events without really a big downside, with room for growth in my career and getting into the big events. I don't know. I always looked at it as, if I play well, I'll get into Bay Hill or something like that. And that's still there, and it's even a bigger kind of carrot. So I don't know. I see it as a good thing overall. It's exciting, I think, for the fans, and I think for the players, if you can kind of see the end game there and be far-sighted, I think that it's good. It is good for everybody, including the people watching us.
We're going to go back right to Jeff.
Max, just kind of back to West Coast and everything that's going on, and you said, being able to detect a little bit, getting tired and it affecting your game. What do you do now that you've gone through this a few years to get away, or what do you do to just sort of shut down and kind of reset? Because you played the Monday and I think it was a Skins game after you won, so obviously you're feeling it now. But as the season goes, what are your plans to just kind of rest or reset?
I don't do so well with rest. I really love practicing and playing, but I guess if I am going to go, the summer gets hot, right? Everywhere we go, it gets pretty darn hot. So I make sure that when I'm at the golf course, I'm doing something as efficiently and productive as I can, so that I might be there for less minutes, but I'm accomplishing the same thing I feel like I need to reach my goals. So it just feels like maybe a little more attention to detail. If it feels good, we get out of there. We don't hit balls every afternoon after we play. If it feels good, if it doesn't, we go work. But trying to be a little bit more aware of energy levels and this and that. But I love practicing. I just try to maybe make it at home more than I do on the road if I do start to feel a little bit fatigued. But yeah, it's a balancing act because you want to get better and you want to push. But I think earlier in my career, I thought if I wasn't hitting balls, I wasn't getting better, and I didn't put a lot of value on rest. And hey, if it feels good, it'll be there tomorrow. We don't need to freak out about that.
Over to the left to Sean.
Here in LACC are obviously both George Thomas designs. Any commonalities in the courses that you like and you think have led to success at both?
Yeah, obviously the first holes are like Mr. Thomas's takes where he gives you the first and then you hang on for 17. It's kind of a bummer to see that one at LACC is going to be a par 4 because I feel like that's a pretty cool, architectural nuance. I look at 18 holes at times on these beautiful, greatly designed courses like a story in a movie, and I think that, it's the first act of a movie. I thought that was a cool thing that he did. Other than that, not a ton. LACC is a second shot golf course similar to this, so I would give it that, but the value on the tee shot out here is a lot higher than out there. Length is not nearly as big of a deal out here as it is out there. The par 3 structure is a lot different out there than it is here, so I don't see a ton of similarities other than where we are. They play very different. The grass types are not even close. So the ball, you could play the ball along the ground a lot at LACC if you wanted to. So I don't see a ton of similarities other than I like the cool aspect of the first hole. Out here, it's funny. It's a mental. It's kind of like a mental game. Is if you par 1, you're even, but you feel 1 over. Then you go to 2, which is one of the hardest holes on tour, and you immediately feel behind the 8 ball, and you've done nothing wrong per se. So I like that. It messes with your mind.
And then what are you looking forward to most about playing a U.S. Open at a course you're familiar with near home, and what do you think is going to be the hardest part of that week?
The hardest part will be the best part, and they're the same thing. A lot of attention, and I don't mean attention on myself. I mean, like, my family and friends are all there, and I love that, but it's also cumbersome in a way. It's not my normal week where I just sit in my hotel room and go to the golf course. I'm getting tickets for people and making time for my friends and my family, which I, again, love to do, but it's hard. It's hard. Last week in Phoenix, that's what makes that tournament very difficult for me these days, especially with, a million people coming through, is everybody and their mother and mine want time. And but it's great. It's not something I would trade, but it's something that you have to kind of balance. For the U.S. Open, I'll probably be a little bit more. I'll be on my phone a bit less. But yeah, what I'm really looking forward to though is getting a chance to play a major golf tournament in my hometown where I will have a lot of support and I'll feel loved on a golf course I've had great success on, and yeah, I'll have all of the good vibes. But yeah, the same thing that, like I said, that's difficult is also my favorite part. It's just a balancing act.
Going back middle to Ryan Lavner.
Max, as it pertains to the PGA Tour, what does the phrase "improve the product" mean to you?
I'm sorry, the proof of the product?
Improve the product.
Oh, improve the product. To me, it means to add entertainment value for the fans. So that can go a lot of different ways. I think the way that it is now would be, or I guess going forward would be, easier for the fans to kind of be able to track where and when their favorite players are going to play. Making it less of a, like I always said, one of my close buddies would text me a lot, like last year, 2 years ago, what are you playing next? I say, oh, this, and his favorite player is Rory, and he would say, is Rory playing? And I hated that he had to ask, but it made sense. But as Rory himself has stated, when you turn on a Buccaneers game, I guess last year, Tom Brady's going to be playing, and he, I'm assuming, is a lot of people's favorite player. So I think making it a little bit easier for the fans to understand. I think last week, I know Nick played great, and it ended up being a battle between himself and Scotty, but to the common fan, it was, Scotty and Rom going up against each other, two of the top 3 players playing right now. That's very exciting. We had Rom and Morikawa at Century, which I thought was awesome. So getting to see those improves the product. So for me, it's just really for what the fans are seeing, trying to make that as exciting and easy to understand as possible.
Front right to Todd.
Max, as seemingly approachable as you seem to be for other players, too, are you hearing, though, from the guys who would be in the lower half of this bifurcation, their concerns that they may be completely shut out? Because unlike when you were talking about when you were, missing a lot of cuts and things like that, the events were all much more similar. Now there's more points involved, more money involved with these more limited events. So is there a fear that these guys just won't have the same access that maybe you had 3 years ago?
I think I'm on the pack, so I know some players' concerns, but I don't think you're being shut out. You are being given an opportunity to see an insane amount of growth if you're looking financially. You have a great season, which we all try to do. You're all of a sudden now in this world of top dollar events without playing a season where you're in anything less than you're doing right now. So it feels like the ceiling is being raised and the floor is staying exactly the same. It is, of course, you need to play well to get into that, but I had to play well to get into that as well. I might have done it a couple of years ago or last year, but there's so much room for growth, and I don't see a drastic downside. The fields, the field size hasn't been determined, I guess, but you're playing a year. If you aren't in any of these designated events, let's say, you're playing a year against less of the ROMs for a year. So I would argue that, and I would say that the world ranking point structure would argue that they would be in a way like mathematically easier to succeed there and make more money in the events you're already in for the same amount you've been playing for. And not even a hot season, a good season, then all of a sudden you're in all of the top ones where now you are playing the ROM, so it's going to get harder, but your shortcomings will be financially beneficial. So I totally understand people's potential gripes with it, but I don't think that they are completely accurate based on what they are getting at the moment. I was shut out in 2017 because I didn't play well at all. But when I did play well in 2019, all of a sudden I got into this event on my own. I got into Bay Hill on my own. I got into Memorial on my own. And those events are a bit more money. And I started playing well in those, and I'd make more money and see, oh, this is the difference between this tournament and the other tournament. But if it wasn't like I felt like I was like missing. I felt like I was missing out on the opportunity, but I didn't think I didn't have a chance to do that. So I think the chance is still there. The opportunity is still there. It's just there's a firmer line now than you'll see, which I almost think this is just, I don't want to speak for other people, but this is what I would see is that's motivation, and that's great in a way for competition. So I trust me, I totally understand people's, I guess, fear of it in a way, or maybe dislike it now, but I really believe that this is a good thing for everybody, given the fact that there is room for every player to go up.
Doug?
Free player in the world. Are you more of a Rahm guy than a Rory guy?
Rory too. You can't pick on me for that. There's too many good players, but I don't know. I just played with Rom last week, and he's pretty fun to watch.
He's good. This may seem weird, but as we talk about getting the biggest collection of stars together more often, and you talk about, and people mention the word, the buzz it brings. If they're together 16 to 18 times a year compared with what used to be maybe 9 or 10, is there any chance that the buzz becomes more of the norm?
Yeah, so I've thought about that, and that is a concern I had. I said, oh, maybe this will start to almost become if everyone's always excited, then what's exciting, right? So, but then I started to think, if we're doing a shorter season, it's more of a sprint. So I've always been of the camp that not having an off season gives no fans time to miss golf. If we end a season in December and then we come back January 1st and then, the announcers, Terry Gannon says, oh, welcome back to the golf. It's like, well, yeah, we did it a week ago, so it's like hard to miss. But so with the shorter season, I think that's exciting. I think though, where my concern started to dissipate is I started to realize that because everyone will be playing in the same events, rivalries will begin to form. And even the best players in the world don't play great every single week. And so there will be weeks that you'll get the Rom and Scotty playing against each other like they did last week. And that'll be great. But maybe the next week it's Colin and Victor. And maybe they go toe-to-toe a couple of times. And now you're waiting for the next event where, oh, man, Colin and Victor are going back. And now they get to kind of run back their, rivalry. The fact that Tiger and Phil had very, very, very few instances where they really battled down the stretch with each other, I think would be the argument for why this will be so exciting, because we'll crave that. And it's not that it's going to be the same two people every week fighting at the top. It'll be a different two a lot of weeks. More chances for it. And there's less of these events. So, yes, you'll see the same guys a lot and the same superstars, for lack of a better term. But it's not like they're always going to be fighting each other at the top of the board. They're going to mix up, but you're going to have a higher likelihood because they're all going to be the top 50 or so players. You're going to have a higher likelihood of your favorite golfer being in the mix, or one of your favorite golfers being in the mix, playing against another one of your favorite golfers. And then maybe one of them will turn into maybe not your favorite golfer because he's beaten the one that you like a little bit more. I don't know. That's how I see it. Because if you look at like the NBA, there's obviously teams that have deep rivalries. But like, I'm a huge Laker fan. When we play the Celtics right now, it doesn't feel like a rivalry because we stink. But when certain teams play the Celtics, it does feel like one because you're seeing great players play. But the interesting part is when the Lakers do play the Celtics, even though one team is significantly worse this season, you still get LeBron James playing against Jason Tatum. Like, it's super exciting. Any NBA game, any night, you have two all-stars going against each other in some form or fashion. And I think that is important. And I think that will be how the golf thing will be a bit more. It's not going to be the same guys every time, but it will be two guys that you know very, very well that are great at the game that will be going toe-to-toe coming down the stretch on Sunday. And I think that overall will be better, and I don't think that will drag on and become the norm, like in a boring way.
I had a quick unrelated follow as a golf savant and a player. Have you ever wondered?
Am I the savant?
Yes, well, today
Sick.
you are. Today you are.
Cool.
Is it a mystery to you at all why Tiger never did very well here, even during healthy and peak years?
We talked about it today. It makes absolutely no sense. It's a second shot golf course. He's the greatest iron player of all time. It truly makes no sense. It's funny you say that because like I've considered myself like my strength being my iron play my whole career, and I've played well here a lot. And when I go to certain courses that Tiger has played great at, which are a lot, but the ones where he's like completely, utterly dominated, Bay Hill I play well at, I realize, I'm like, oh, iron play is very important at these golf courses he plays so well at. So when you come here, I would have thought he won 10 times. So I don't know. Golf's funny in that way. It makes no sense. He putts. I mean, he's good at everything, but that one's a mystery to me because this seems like this would just be a playground for him.
Over here on the right.
Hey, Max, welcome home. And I was curious, when you look in the rearview mirror of where you were 4 or 5 years ago and the pressure of keeping your card and proving you belonged, is that a different pressure that you feel now as a man who's won 6 times and trying to get that first major?
Yeah, it's immensely different. And I have to like bring myself back to reality a lot when I do feel nervous going down the stretch in San Diego about what real pressure is, and I only mean in sports, because other people outside of sports, athletics, have a lot more pressure. But just in the sports world, I feel like I already dealt with all that. I dealt with losing my job and having to go find a new avenue to get my way back up here. That was going to take another couple of years. So, when I played the Wells Fargo in 19, I was playing with Rory on Saturday. I remember I was just like really having a hard time driving to the golf course. I was very fidgety and nervous, and it just kind of hit me in that Rory hasn't dealt with that kind of nerves before, so I should look at this as not crazy. And if I fail that day, life goes on. I've had worse, so I try to keep myself in check with that and use that as a benefit and as something that should excite me as a professional golfer on a big stage. That to me, failure was losing my card on the then Web Tour, now Korn Ferry, and then figuring out what I was going to do after that, and then succeeding in that, knowing that if I'm coming down the stretch against somebody on a Sunday, and that failure is not so bad. But to the first part of your question, I think, again, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I would assume, but I continue to try to prove that I am worthy of being a top player out here. I feel like Kobe Bryant talked about it. Fear is a great motivator. And I think that fear of failure and that fear of losing your job and not winning again, if you use it in the right way, can be incredibly beneficial to your career. It makes me want to work harder. It makes me, after Torrey, immediately get nervous about going to Phoenix and maybe not playing well, and then that keeps me on my toes. So I think all those things become good when you're using them in the right way.
We're going to go to Bob and then Dylan. Bob? Oh,
Yes,
Bob, Dylan.
thanks. Max, I guess you would have played with Tiger the last time he actually played an official round of golf. What was that day like at St. Andrews? Also, did you gain any inspiration just by his comeback last year? It wasn't a winning comeback, but it was a pretty remarkable one anyway.
Yeah, inspiration probably not, and I don't mean that in a bad way. We kind of expect it from him. He's just different. What I was most amazed by was him making the cut in those first 2 events, first 2 majors, just realizing just how good he is at every part of golf. I can't explain how hard it is to not play golf for months and then go to a golf tournament, any golf tournament, and play well. If I take 2 weeks off and go play a skins game with my friends, I feel rusty. He's going to play a major against the best players in the world who have been preparing for this all year. And he went and beat half of them twice. So he beat me. I remember watching him walk. He was playing behind me at Augusta, and he walked up. I was talking to my family, and he walked up behind me, and we were watching him kind of literally hobble, and I was just like, how in the hell did this guy just beat me? Like, how? I've worked all year to play this golf tournament, and he beat me, and this is his first event. The nerves, everything, it's just like overbearing at times. So I'm amazed more than inspired. I've been inspired enough by that guy. We expect him to come out here this week and play great in every event he tees it up at, because he's just that good at golf. But playing with him at the Open was really cool. He obviously didn't play well, but he still hit a couple shots that I won't forget. You can just see the gift and the talent that he has, and then getting to watch everybody, the outpouring of respect he had walking up that last hole, the whole day for sure, but especially the last hole. It was just cool, because I think all of us out here have that for him, but we only know what we feel. To watch everybody else show that they feel the same way, that was special to be a part of.
All right, Dylan?
Who would you most like to see mic'd up for a hole on CBS?
Justin Thomas.
Why is that?
I think he's very smart. He plays golf kind of the old school way. He likes to move the ball a lot. He's very thoughtful. His caddy is probably the best caddy of all time. Don't tell Joe. He's got a long way. I want to keep Joe on his toes. He's on his way, but I just think the discussion would be good. I think listening to how JT breaks down an iron shot as one of the best iron players I've ever seen would be interesting. And I know that he doesn't want to do it, so this is just an easy layup for me.
All right. Any last questions for Max before we let him go? All right, Max, thanks so much for your time. Good luck this week.
Thank you, guys.